We're now in that time when I believe it will come together. It's shocking that Putin would say, well, we're doing better, so we're not going to sign a ceasefire. So we're taking more territory. Well, it's time for Putin to really come around and get serious about this. And I think that's what I was very pleased to hear Secretary General Rutte say, that everyone is together on this and we need to go forward together.
Well, Ambassador, we're hearing from Vladimir Putin and from Moscow conditions that are simply unacceptable to Ukraine, including freezing all of lines where they are in place now, essentially giving the Donbas, Crimea, and the rest formally to Russia. There's also news today in the Washington Post, multiple classified U.S. intelligence reports casting doubt on Putin's willingness to end the war against Ukraine. Can we take him seriously as an actor at the negotiating table?
I think we can take him seriously. And I think seriously means to understand that he has used terrorist tactics against the prisoners of war, shooting them in the heads, innocent civilians, bombing the infrastructure, and kidnapping thousands of children to indoctrinate them into the Russian language and families. So, well, yeah, we can take him seriously, but we're dealing with a despot. We're dealing with a person that we're going to have to play hardball with, along with Ukraine and all of our European allies. And absolutely, we should take him seriously and we should start playing hardball with him, just as it has been very difficult for Ukraine to accept the predicament they're in, but they're coming to the table. It's time for Russia to get serious.
Well, one of the things that Russia has suggested is that they will not tolerate the presence of NATO troops in Ukraine, even if it's what's constituting a peacekeeping force. Ambassador, do you believe anything other than NATO-affiliated troops can actually keep a credible peace?
Well, I think NATO troops will be the ones, because we are the security alliance and the security trained people. Maybe it's not under a NATO banner. Maybe it's on a different
But from NATO
consortium,
countries?
a coalition of the willing, but it will be the European troops. It's all in negotiation where we would be, if we would be helpful, but not on the ground, or if, I think the proposition that we would do air cover as we did in Afghanistan, helping the Afghans as they were fighting for their country. We can provide air cover for Ukraine to stay peaceful. That's on the negotiating table. That hasn't been decided, but I think there are many configurations for peacekeepers, and it would be a coalition of the willing.
Donald Trump, as a candidate, said he would end this war on day one. Ambassador, he said that for more than a year on the campaign trail. That's clearly not the case. What is the realistic timeline for these negotiations to proceed?
Well, I think we're in the timeline where Russia's got to come to the table, and we're going to have to play hardball with Russia, just as hardball has been played with Ukraine. And I think U.S. and certainly our NATO allies are trying to be helpful, but I think that this is the time to call Putin's hand and say, okay, we have set this up. We are going to be a neutral player, but that means it takes two to tango.
Well, we've certainly heard it takes two to tango from President Trump in recent days, Ambassador. We've also heard him make some suggestions that have caused people to question the U.S. commitment to Article 5 of NATO. Suggestions, and this is a quote, "If you're not going to pay, we're not going to defend. If you're not going to pay your bills, we're not going to defend you." Are such suggestions detrimental to what the U.S. is trying to achieve in having credible negotiations with Russia?
Well, no, I don't think the NATO issue and our commitments at NATO are on the table for Russia because they have nothing to do with NATO or with our commitments. I thought the
But
meeting that
if the
President Trump
president
had.
suggests the U.S. wouldn't come to the defense of a NATO country that may be closer to Russia that they could look at next after Ukraine, does that not encourage potentially bad behavior?
No, I don't think that that was ever a serious suggestion that we would not abide by Article 5. Article 5 is has only been invoked once in the history of the 75 years, and that was on the behalf of the United States after 9/11. So I believe that Article 5 is inviolate. Certainly, the meeting today with Secretary Ruta and the previous ones with Secretary General Stoltenberg were very clear that Trump is not walking away from NATO. He knows that we are committed as an alliance. We have signed a treaty saying if any NATO country is invaded, that it would be a war that we would all fight together as they came together for the United States. Of course, Ukraine is not a NATO country, but I think that eventually we have to have the peace. We have to start helping Ukraine